Snow came down that evening the way secrets do, quietly, without announcement, covering everything people preferred not to see. I remember the sound of it most. Not the wind, not the distant church bell, but the hush. That deep, aching stillness that settles over a town when winter decides it owns the place. I was standing outside the old courthouse with Deputy Elias Crowell, watching frost creep along the iron railings like slow white fingers. Beside him sat Ash, his retired K9, spine straight despite the cold, breath rising in patient clouds. The dog's muzzle had gone gray before his time, and so had Elias's eyes, if you knew how to look. They were waiting for nothing in particular. That's how lonely men pass time, pretending stillness is duty. That's when the girl appeared. She didn't come running or crying. She simply stepped out of the falling snow, as if winter itself had decided to speak through her. Her boots were too thin, her coat too large, sleeves swallowing her hands. She hovered at a careful distance, eyes flicking first to Elias's badge, then to Ash. The dog noticed her immediately. His ears lifted, not in alarm, but recognition, the way animals sometimes know a wounded thing when they see one. The girl hesitated, then spoke, her voice barely louder than the snow landing on wool. "Can I sit near you?" It wasn't a plea. It wasn't even really a question. It was something lonelier than both. Elias didn't answer right away. He'd learned, over the years, that silence was safer than the wrong kindness. The town had taught him that. Every kindness here came with witnesses, and witnesses loved to talk. He shifted his weight, leather creaking, eyes moving toward the saloon windows glowing warm and judgmental across the street. Ash broke the pause. The dog leaned forward and nudged the snow at his feet, tail making one slow, hopeful sweep. It was a small rebellion. Enough. Elias sighed, the sound carrying years with it, and nodded once. The girl crossed the space between them and folded herself onto the steps, careful not to touch, as if she'd learned early that permission was fragile. Ash pressed his side against her anyway. She startled, then relaxed, shoulders sagging as warmth found her through layers of borrowed cloth. From across the square, someone laughed. Mrs. Wickham, no doubt. She laughed when she didn't understand something and judged it anyway. "That child don't belong there," she said loudly to no one in particular. "Strays attract trouble." She meant the girl. She might have meant the dog. In this town, the difference didn't matter much. Elias kept his gaze forward. His hand rested on Ash's head, fingers tracing scars earned years ago in service no one thanked him for anymore. "You got a name?" he asked the girl, not looking at her. "Lila," she said. "Lila May Holloway." The name hung between them, thin and fragile. Holloway. A name with space in it. A name that echoed. "You cold?" Elias asked, though the answer was written all over her trembling. She nodded once. "Been colder." That was how you knew. Kids who had known real cold didn't dramatize it. They survived it quietly. He reached into his coat and pulled out a tin cup, half filled with coffee gone lukewarm. He didn't offer it outright. He just set it down between them and went still again. Lila waited, counting breaths, then wrapped both hands around it. The steam kissed her face. Her eyes closed for a second too long. Ash watched her the way he once watched doorways, alert, protective, already decided. Town gossip moved faster than weather. By morning, everyone would know the deputy had let a rail-shed girl sit beside him, that he'd shared warmth meant for better people. Elias knew this. He also knew that if he stood up now and walked away, the cold would reclaim her without effort. Winter was patient like that. "Where's your folks?" he asked eventually. "Gone," she said. No drama. No story. Just gone. Ash shifted closer, and she leaned into him without thinking. Her cheek rested against his fur, eyes fixed on the snow, collecting on his whiskers. The dog didn't move. He'd once stayed still for hours beside a wounded partner in a burning house. This was easier. Elias felt something tighten in his chest, a memory stirring where he kept old mistakes. He'd once ignored a quiet thing that asked for help too softly. He'd told himself rules mattered more. He still visited the grave. Footsteps approached. Heavy ones. Sheriff Boone Calder stopped a few paces away. Breath sharp, authority sharper. His eyes flicked from the girl to the dog to Elias. "This appropriate growl?" he asked. Elias met his gaze. "She's cold." Boone sniffed. "Town's not a shelter." "No," Elias agreed. "But we are." The sheriff's jaw worked. He looked at Ash, at the scars that told stories no badge ceremony ever honored. "Dog's retired," Boone said. "Girl ain't our problem." Ash growled, low and controlled. "Not a threat. A warning." Boone took a step back, then straightened. "See that it don't turn into one," he muttered, and walked off, boots crunching judgment into snow. Lila's fingers tightened in Ash's fur. "I'll go," she said quickly. "Didn't mean trouble." "You didn't make any," Elias said. He stood, shrugging off his coat and draping it around her shoulders before she could refuse. The weight of it nearly made her cry. "Just don't disappear in this weather." She nodded, swallowing words she didn't trust herself with, and stood. Ash watched her until she reached the edge of the square, then whined softly. That night, the wind howled like it was angry at something. Elias lay awake listening to it, thinking about hollow names and small voices. He dreamed of snow-filling rooms where people waited. By morning, the rumor had grown teeth. Someone said the girl stole bread. Someone else said she'd been seen near the old stables. Mrs. Whitcomb said she had eyes like trouble. The town decided that was enough. Elias found Lila that evening where the rail tracks bent away from town, Ash pulling him there with purpose. She sat wrapped in his coat, cheeks red, eyes wary but hopeful. Ash went to her immediately, tail thumping snow. "You shouldn't be here," Elias said, meaning the town, meaning the world. She smiled, small and brave. "But you are." That was when Elias understood the danger. Not of scandal or gossip, but of caring. Because once you let someone sit near you in the cold, you couldn't pretend you didn't feel the winter anymore. Snow began to fall again, heavier this time, and somewhere deep in Ash's chest, a low, uneasy sound rumbled, an instinct waking. Elias felt it too. The sense that something fragile had been noticed by something cruel. And winter, always watching, had decided to test what mercy was worth. And the cold, as it always does, began to close in. The storm arrived without ceremony, the way all decisive things do. One moment the town lamps still glowed, weak but defiant, and the next they were swallowed by white, their halos dissolving into the kind of darkness that makes even familiar streets feel unearned. Elias knew something was wrong the instant Ash refused to settle. The dog paced the length of the small rented room, nails ticking against the floor, nose lifting toward the window as if scent could travel through glass and snow. His low whine threaded itself through the silence, urgent and unmistakable. This was not age or ache. This was memory. This was duty waking up in old bones. "Easy," Elias murmured, though his own pulse had already quickened. He pulled on his coat, the one that still smelled faintly of cold iron and coffee, and opened the door. The wind slapped him hard, stole his breath, filled his mouth with ice. Ash bolted forward, leash forgotten, disappearing into the storm with the certainty of something following truth. They found the rail shed half buried, its outline barely visible through the snowdrifts. Elias stumbled, boots sinking, lungs burning, calling Lila's name until it tore his throat raw. Ash circled once, then stopped, barking sharply. Elias dropped to his knees, hands numb, brushing snow away until fabric appeared, then a small, unmoving shoulder. Lila lay curled in on herself, Elias's coat clutched tight, lashes white with frost. For one terrible second, she didn't stir. Elias pressed his ear to her chest, counting heartbeats like prayers. 1, 2, there. Weak but there. Ash pressed his body against hers, whining, licking her frozen fingers, giving heat he didn't have to spare. Elias scooped her up, the weight of her impossibly light, and turned back toward town. Each step felt like argument with the wind, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. By the time they reached the clinic, Elias's hands were shaking so badly he could barely knock. Light spilled out, yellow and forgiving. Someone shouted. Someone ran for blankets. Words like hypothermia floated past him, hollow and sharp. Sheriff Boone arrived not long after, snow clinging to his hat, authority looking smaller in the face of a child wrapped in emergency warmth. He took in the scene. Ash collapsed beside the cot, chest heaving, eyes never leaving Lila's face. She wasn't stealing, Elias said before Boone could speak. His voice was quiet, but it carried. She was surviving. Boone looked at the girl, then at the dog, at the deep lines in Elias's face carved by a winter that had never really left him. Something shifted. It wasn't apology. It was recognition. The vet came in, shaking his head slowly as he examined Ash. He pushed himself too far, he said. Old injuries. Heart's tired. Lila stirred at that, eyes fluttering open. She reached out, fingers searching blindly until they found Ash's fur. He stayed, she whispered. I wasn't alone. Ash licked her hand once, weakly, tail giving a faint thump against the floor. Elias felt the tightness in his chest break, just enough to let air back in. The storm passed by morning. Snow lay clean and deceptively gentle over everything it had tried to destroy. Word spread, but this time it changed shape as it traveled. People came quietly. Blankets. Food. No speeches. Mrs. Whitcomb stood at the back, eyes downcast, saying nothing at all. Boone cleared his throat, uncomfortable. There's room, he said gruffly. For the girl. Officially. Lila looked at Elias, searching his face for the answer before the question had fully formed. He nodded once. It was all she needed. Ash recovered slowly. He never ran the same again, never stood quite as long, but he stayed. He always stayed. Sometimes Lila would sit beside him in the evening cold, just close enough, and Elias would watch from a distance, understanding now how small permissions could hold entire worlds. I think about that winter often, about how a question asked softly can change the direction of a life, about how dogs remember what we forget, that warmth is meant to be shared, that loyalty is an action, not a promise. If this story found you in a cold place, if it reminded you that quiet kindness still matters, stay with us a while longer. Subscribe to Whispered Tales, where stories move slowly, hearts heal quietly, and even in the deepest winter, no one has to sit alone.